We're about to break down the Vikings general manager and head coach interview requests and full finished interviews. Before we do that, though, which job do you want the Vikings to hire first? General manager or head coach? Type in GM if you want to go with the GM first, or HC if you want to hire the head coach. This is actually the pinned comment on today's video, so head down there and type in your GM or your HCs. Tom Downey here for Minnesota Vikings Now to break down all of the interview requests and finished interviews for the Vikings head coach and GM search. And we're going to begin with the head coach side of things, since those are a little bit more new and newsy. First up is Nathaniel Hackett, the Green Bay Packers offensive coordinator, an interview that's actually already been completed by Minnesota. This was one of their first interviews that they got done. Hackett is reportedly well regarded by the NFL. Now, he's not the play caller for the Green Bay Packers. That is still the job of Matt LaFleur. But I've seen some similar praise that I saw Matt LaFleur get before he became the Tennessee Titans head coach. So Hackett is somebody I would want to interview, and it never hurts to interview the top, coordinator of the best team in your division. Next up is Dan Quinn, and there is nobody hotter right now on the interview circuit for head coaches than Dan Quinn. Every job that is open except the Texans and the Raiders have at least requested an interview with Quinn. He is unquestionably one of the top candidates this year after the job he did taking the Cowboys defense from a bottom 5 at best-ish unit to they were pretty much top 5 this year. There is a lot of buzz around Quinn. I would be shocked if he's not a head coach somewhere this time next season, or doesn't get a head coaching job this cycle. Now, you had an offensive guy and a defensive guy. If it's all equal, of course, you want to just hire the best guy. But if all things are equal, what type of coach should the Vikings hire? Type O for an offensive-minded guy or D for defense. When in doubt, always go offense. It's harder to find offensive minds and keep them as coordinator than it is to do that with a defensive guy. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Time for the requested interviews right now. These will begin to pick up, I'm sure, in the coming days and weeks if needed. Todd Bowles, the Buccaneers DC. Yes, things did not go great for the New York Jets. I'll make this point, though. I think he's done a fantastic job in Tampa. I think he and Dan Quinn are equal, if not maybe Bowles a little bit better, caliber defensive coaches. I do think he's worthy of another shot as a head coach. Jonathan Gannon is next up here, the DC of the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, a requested interview here. Of the 3 defensive minds up here, Gannon is the one I am least interested in because his defense I didn't think was that great in Philadelphia. So give me Bowles and Quinn over Jonathan Gannon instead. Now, I'll make note, overall here, as I go on my little soapbox, coaching hires are difficult because in most cases, the reason why you get hired is because you coordinated a great offense or a great defense. That doesn't directly translate, though, to being a great head coach. What you get hired for isn't always what you end up having to do well to be a successful head coach, which makes the process very, very tricky. So keep that in mind as it relates to all these different interview requests and interviews made by Minnesota. Now, for more news, rumors, and everything you want all off-season long, we're doing coaching stuff right now. We'll have plenty of draft, free agency, and, yes, trade stuff on top of that. Hit the big red button and subscribe to Minnesota Vikings Now. Kellen Moore, next up here, the Cowboys offensive coordinator. After week 6, it was, should the Cowboys just fire Mike McCarthy and promote Kellen Moore to be the head coach? Now it's, maybe Kellen's not that good. The stock kind of cratered. I thought he did a bad job as the Cowboys offensive coordinator down the stretch this past year. That's a red flag. He's viewed as the next up-and-coming hot young offensive coordinator. So is Jason Garrett, and I fear maybe Kellen is more Jason Garrett than he is Sean McVay. Defensive mind next up here, Raheem Morris of the Los Angeles Rams. Morris was backed by Jalen Ramsey and other Rams players as this guy should be a head coach. And I do think being able to connect and build those relationships with your players means a hell of a lot for a head coach. Not sure Morris is the best candidate out there, but I've got no issues interviewing him. And you know what? Maybe he impresses and shows, hey, this is why I deserve to get another shot here as a head coach. Now, today's show is powered by our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Head over to chatsports.com/bet and use the promo code you see on screen. That is chat125. $100 in, boom, an extra 125% deposit bonus at chatsports.com/bet when you use promo code chat125. You can win the playoffs, right? Titans, Bengals, Packers, Niners, Bucks, Rams, Chiefs, Bills. That line, by the way, Chiefs, Bills, getting closer and closer to the Bills having the advantage, the Sharps on Buffalo in that one. But take advantage of it, 125% deposit bonus. Turns out both Rams coordinators are on the Vikings head coaching interview list. That makes sense because once you work for Sean McVay, the results have been pretty good. I think his coaching tree has already had more success than Bill Belichick's has ever had in terms of the actual coaching tree. Now, what makes things interesting with O'Connell is he has worked outside of the McVay coaching tree as well. I'm actually a little bit more intrigued by O'Connell right now than I am Kellen Moore. Maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment, but that's where I'm at. DeMeco Ryans, next up here, the Niners defensive coordinator. I thought did a great job shutting down Kellen Moore. That Niners secondary does not have elite talent. They're pretty banged up and not that great overall. They still got pressure consistently. That's a credit to, I think, what Ryans was able to do as the coordinator. Former player, of course, spent so much of his time in the NFL with the Houston Texans, Philadelphia Eagles. He is very much on the rise. Overall, I don't think they're done requesting interviews. We'll see if they get more in the coming days. There is still time. The trend I noticed on both the head coach and GM list, lots of up-and-comers. Yeah, Dan Quinn is not in that mold. Probably not Raheem Morris very much either, though he's still decently young. Todd Bowles not fit, but they're looking young for their head coach. Makes me wonder if they will end up going more of a rebuild or a reset than trying to go all in with Kirk Cousins next year. So who do you want as the Vikings' next head coach? You can put in a name not on that list if you want to. Just sound off for me in the comments. All right, Vikings GM interview tracker here. First up, the completed ones. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the VP of Football Operations for the Cleveland Browns. Analytics-focused guy. Not your scout or your NFL scout or your college scout. This is more of your puppet master, analytics-focused, and hire good people to build a good organization with a focus, I would believe, on the analytical side of things. Brandon Brown, next up here. He's the Director of Player Personnel in Philadelphia. Very intriguing name to keep an eye out for. Young, on the rise. That's the overall trend with this. All these guys, I think they're all under 44, 43, I think is the oldest guy that the Vikings are interviewing. This is a no boomers allowed interview process. By the way, that's a mindset, not an age thing. Monti Ossenfort of the Titans. He's got several interviews out there. Keep an eye on him. He has a bit of a local flair, having grown up in Minnesota. Played collegiately there, too, in the state. Ryan Poles, who is the Executive Director of Player Personnel for the Kansas City Chiefs. Been there for a very long time. Still very young, by the way. I'll make note, Poles is a finalist for the Giants job. So he's clearly drawn interest from New York. Keep an eye on him in Minnesota as a GM candidate as well. Now, look, not many of us really know much about these GMs. We can all do the same research, but they're not in the same public eye as the head coaching candidates are. So I still want you to pick a name for me. Who do you want the Vikings to hire as their next general manager? Catherine Raiche, next up here, another VP of Football Operations for the Philadelphia Eagles, the first female to interview for a GM job. She would not be the first one to get the job, but interview, yes. Raiche spent some time in the CFL, had a high-ranking position over there. Interesting name here for Minnesota, and I think one to keep an eye on, too. John Spytek was actually the first interview for Minnesota, recently promoted to VP of Player Personnel for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll make note, by the way, of the interviews, right? You interviewed 2 Eagles people, Brandon Brown, Catherine Raiche. You interviewed or requested an interview Jonathan Gannon. Haven't interviewed any Browns associates, but Kwesi Adofo probably through Kevin Stefanski at least a little bit. And then you go out and you interview John Spytek while interviewing Todd Bowles. Just keep that connection in mind. The next 2 here have not been interviewed yet. Glenn Cook, the VP of Player Personnel in Cleveland, and Elliot Wolf, the Consultant Director of Scouting for the New England Patriots right now. They've not interviewed yet. I would wonder if that interview comes in the coming days here, given the way they've spaced their interviews. Overall, Minnesota should be close to starting their second round of interviews. The finalists for this job should emerge soon. I'm not sure how many other interviews this team is going to end up doing for GM. I'd be surprised if it was 1 or 2 more, if that. If you haven't already, subscribe to our Vikings channel for consistent updates on this pivotal GM and head coaching search. It's youtube.com/Vikings Today.